Whilst these two cars look pretty similar on paper, it's quite clear they're now courting a very different audience. Hello guys, and welcome to this Volks Wizard video, which is a momentous video because it's the first one to ever feature a Skoda. I was quite surprised about this, bearing in mind how many videos I've made over the years and how many of these I've actually sold, but I've never really had anything interesting enough to review for you guys. But a lot of you guys have actually asked for me to review this new Skoda Octavia because, at least on paper, the VRS version we have here is a natural rival for the base Golf GTI. So I asked Skoda UK if they would lend me one, and amazingly they said yes. So here we have the brand new Octavia VRS 245 PS petrol. It's front wheel drive, it's a hatchback, and it's DSG, so it's very close in its hardware to the Golf GTI 245 that I had here a few months ago. You may have noticed we have a Golf GTI here. This is my Clubsport. It is not a natural rival to this car because it's got a lot more power and it's significantly more expensive, but it's a handy car to have here because apart from the front bumper, it looks like the base GTI, and inside, apart from the seat fabric, I think it's pretty much identical to the base GTI, and there are some significant differences inside these two cars that could help you decide which one is for you. There are loads of differences elsewhere as well, so this should be a really good video. We are of course going to look at the outside of this car in detail, we're going to look at the inside in great detail, and of course we are going to go for a test drive. But before we do that, let's have a look at the vital statistics of these very similar hot hatches. Okay, let's get the ball rolling then by talking about price. The base Golf GTI 245 PS with a 7-speed DSG gearbox is £35,010. As you'd imagine, the equivalent VRS is a little bit cheaper, about £2,700. It comes in at £32,285, the car you see here. So this is petrol, automatic, hatchback VRS. There are many other derivatives like estates and diesels and four-wheel drives, and I think there's even a manual petrol you can buy as well, as there is with the Golf GTI. The GTI is a little bit quicker. It does 0 to 60 in 6.3, and the VRS does it in 6.7, maybe because it's a little bit heavier, because they both have the same 245 metric horsepower engine and they both produce 370 Newton meters of torque. They can also both do 155 miles an hour, but that's probably limited, so they may go well past that and they could be a little bit different. What is interesting is that the GTI is heavier on emissions. So this produces 168 grams per kilometre of CO2, and this is 157, which I find fascinating because this is a little bit heavier. Maybe it's aerodynamics. That's reflected in the MPG. So the GTI does 38.2 miles to the gallon combined. The VRS does 40.8 combined. So that's pretty impressive to get into the 40s for a sporty petrol car. That's obviously WLTP, so it's pretty realistic. And it's really impressive when you bear in mind that the GTI is 57 kilograms lighter, so it's 1463 kilograms versus 1520. So maybe the extended rear of this car gives it better aerodynamics because it is significantly longer, as I found out when I tried to get into a parking space yesterday. I had to reread this. The VRS, in fact probably every Octavia, is 41.5 centimetres longer, and most of that is in the boot area because it's only 5 centimetres longer in the wheelbase. So you get a bit more passenger space in the VRS, but you get a lot more boot space. I'd imagine the floor pan of this hatchback is going to be the same as the estate, so you don't lose any of the length of the estate, you just lose some of the height, which I think is really impressive. Now let's have a look at the outside of the new VRS. Okay, before we have a closer look at the exterior of the Octavia VRS, let's just talk about the options that have been fitted to it, because its base price of $32,285 has been swollen to $34,850. But the good news is everything you see out here is standard. So the 19-inch wheels, the black mirrors, the black badges, the black grille, the red calipers, all that Audi would charge you, I think, quite a few £1,000 extra for. The only thing that's not standard is the metallic paint, which is quartz grey metallic, and that's £595 the standard colour on this car is Meteor Grey, which I think is a Nardo Grey colour. The most expensive option is dynamic chassis control at £1,040. Surprisingly, that's £255 more than it would be to spec it on a Golf, which is weird because it's probably exactly the same hardware. And they're giving you 19s, so you may need it. Interestingly, these tyres are not the 235, 35, 19s we've got used to on Golfs and the like when you go to 19s. They're 225, 40 19s, which give you a bit more sidewalls, so maybe they will be compliant. Obviously, I haven't got a non-DCC car to test, but we'll give the DCC a good test when we do the driving. Other extras are a driver fatigue sensor for £45, a head-up display which puts things in the windscreen like speed and so on. You can see it sort of sat there in the top of the dash, which I find a bit annoying because you have to focus on it and then focus around it when you look at everything else through the windscreen. And then it's got a free of charge rear window wiper. So maybe this is optional. I guess, yeah, it's possible because the aerodynamics may keep the screen clean. And as Skodas have always needed, you have to pay extra for a space saver spare wheel. Well, that's become an option on the Golf with the Mark 8 before it was standard. So, yep, £34,850. Right, let's get rid of that and let's now have a look at the design. Well, starting at the front, I've seen it now and I can't forget it. It makes me think of Jaws from the Bond film, the guy with the metal teeth. Oh. But other than that, there's sort of hints of BMW 3 Series before they put the massive grille on it, which isn't a bad look. It also actually looks much like the previous generation Octavia to my eyes. I'm not sure that's the good thing because the Golf has proven to us that it takes a bit of getting used to, but once you get used to it, it makes the old car look old. Well, this looks like the old car, and will it age pretty quickly as a result of that? It's even got these LEDs, I think down here, which were a feature of Mark II, Octavia vRS, probably over 10 years ago. But yeah, it's a conservative styling effort, I think. The grille looks a bit too low, I think, compared to the old one. It's just, but that's all the pedestrian protection, I'm sure. Looking down the side of it, we have the concave surfacing that we've got used to on the new A3. It's probably not as extreme as on the A3, but it looks nice. Yeah, like it. Black mirror housings, not particularly obvious on this grey car. The wheels are a bit Marmite, but I think they're way better than the ones on the GTI, and I think they'll actually probably look quite good on the GTI. I wonder if Skoda would notice that. Okay, so the side's pretty inoffensive, no side mouldings. I think the door handles hinge like the new Golf as well now, so that's interesting. At the back, we have got black badges, and no need to buy them off eBay. They come standard with this car. We've got this little black spoiler, which you don't get on the estate versions. As the rear quarter goes into the boot lid, it reminds me from certain angles Audi A7, probably about there actually, which is, you know, no bad thing at all. Yeah, it's not a bad looking car. At the back, the rear lights are quite slim. Yeah, good. We've got not really fake grills, but some sort of unnecessary trims there, but at least they're black. And we've got a red reflector right across the bottom of the car in the rear valance. It's not really a diffuser. Thankfully, whilst the exhaust tips are 100% fake, we've got some proper exhaust going into them. They're not even directly connected to them, but at least there are two of them, so that's pretty good. Skoda, thank you for not ruining this car by compromising on that. So yeah, a pretty good looking car outside. Now let's have a look inside. Sorry if it's a bit too sunny today. It's really hard to do interiors in so much brightness, but hopefully it'll get better when we get inside. Let's start off then by looking at the door card, and this, to my eyes, is quite a nice door card. So firstly, we've got some Alcantara micro suede there. We've got interesting design to the upper speaker grille, sort of less so for the lower one. And then the plastic bit here, which I don't like on the Golf 8, I've actually got a boot release in it. The switches do look quite cheap though, but that's because this is in base model spec quite a cheap car. We've got electric folding mirrors, which are standard, that's nice. We've got soft touch there and there, nice elbow pad. Another texture there, and then this sort of piano black here, and a shiny handle, which might even be metal. It'd be nice if that was black actually, because there's black on the outside. Should really be carried on to the inside. I'm very pleased to see we have got some sill protectors, and they've got the vRS logo. They are metal as well, so that's a really nice touch, something Volkswagen very rarely, if ever, give you these days. Down there we've got stainless steel pedals. Some pretty boring mats though, just plain black. Shame mats. And then we have the seats. Well, isn't this interesting that a car that really isn't as sporty as, say, a Golf R has got sportier seats with this cutout bit there. Okay, they're the same basic seats and there's just a bit missing from them, but wow. And then we've got diamond stitching, another sort of grippy fabric there, red stitching on the outside, the RS logo stitched in there as well. Yeah, probably the best seats I've seen so far in these new models. Remind me of the ones in the M135i a bit, although they're actually, I think, a little bit better than these as well. We've got the new sort of dumbed down headlight switch, which means you can't drive with your side lights on when the car says it's too dark for you to do that, which can be a bit annoying when you're filming. Right, let's get inside then. Okay, well, it's quite different to the Golf in here. We'll come on to the central screen in a second. Let's just take in this. This is sort of like a carbon fibre trim that runs the width of the dash, the little gap there. We've got some sort of like design to the surround for the digital instrument cluster. I'm looking for a start button here, but weirdly they put it on the steering column cowling. I mean, when you get used to it, it's fine, and I guess it does free up space down here. Nothing really happens down here, but it just looks like a bit of an afterthought, like they've converted a normal car and they can't be bothered to put the start-stop button somewhere better. I suppose there's plenty of room here. We have got some switches in here. Let me just turn the cleaner down when it decides to wake up. Now, people do like to have switches, and I guess they look pretty good there, but I've got to tell you, they feel like they're off a child's toy. Can you hear that? They would be laughing at Ingolstadt when they hear that. So they're giving you switches, but they really don't want to in this car. Let's see how easy it is to adjust this then. So let's go to cleaner. We want traditional, classic aircon. And we want to turn the fan down, so there we go. We've got these knurled plastic bits everywhere. They're okay, I guess they liven up the cabin. There's a bit of knurling around there as well, but this is all, I'm pretty sure, plastic. And there's some knurling on here as well. It's interesting, I don't mind it. It's, you know, it's quite good. Steering wheel layout is different to the one on the Golf. For starters, no cruise control. Here, it's down here, very Audi-esque. We've got paddles, they look a little bit different to the Golf ones, I think. And you've got the digital instrument cluster, which you can obviously customize to suit. Interestingly, you can have navigation on there, and you can also have it on here. So on Mark 7.5 Golf, you could have it on one or the other. On Mark 8, you can't have it on the instrument cluster. You have to pay extra, I think, to upgrade to have that. On this car for free, presumably, because there's no options, you can have it on both at the same time. I think that's really, really cool. Of course, the problem with that is that you'll probably be using CarPlay, and whilst it works here on a wireless basis, we don't have wireless charging, and wireless CarPlay does munch through your battery. On a Golf, just put your phone down there and it connects wirelessly to CarPlay, and it charges your phone up as well most of the time. Anyway, on this, it definitely doesn't have it. The car came with a USB adapter for the USB-Cs but I didn't have a charger on me, and as a result my phone went flat yesterday. That's just my own fault, I guess. We've got a more traditional cup holder here, and they feel a bit less sprung than the 7.5 ones, so they're pretty good. But if you get like a big coffee cup, it doesn't really sit very deeply in there, so the Golf one's a little bit nicer because it's more adaptable to the size of the cup. We've got a centre armrest with red stitching on it. This is definitely fake leather and not an awful lot in there. But the big problem for me is that sitting here, this screen either looks angled towards the passenger or at best looks angled dead square with the back of the car. Yeah, which I don't like. I can't see why they'd angle it towards the passenger because this dash moulding is not the same as on left-hand drive cars, so why would it need to be a left-hand drive position? Maybe it's just a trick of the light, because I'm used to the Golf 8 where it's angled towards me. So sitting here, even if this is dead square with the axle of the car, say, it feels like it's not aimed at me. And that's made even worse by the fact that the controls, the home button, is over here. So I'm in my driving position, I'm about 3 inches away from being able to touch that. So every time I want to go to the menus, I have to lean forward. Surely they could have designed that right for us. That is really weird. On this car, you have the same climate interface as on the Golf, so you have to press the button to get to the controls. They're probably not as intuitive. You can't like do that. On the Golf you can slide up and down. On this you can literally only press up and down. You do get free heated seats, by the way, which is nice. You get a free heated steering wheel as well, which is nice. So yeah, the climate interface is exactly the same and it's not bad. You don't get the sliders. You only get it for the audio, and yet nobody seems to be complaining about that because they gave you them with the Golf as a bonus. You don't actually need to use them. This car hasn't got them, so you've got exactly the same climate interface as the Golf, but the Golf has actually got more ways of doing it. Let's go and have a look at the Golf because this is such a big talking point. We need to go and get this straight. Okay, so climate and then that. And then you can also do that, which I like a lot. So yes, you've got these, but you don't really need them. My thinking on these buttons here is that they were designed to work for left-hand drive and right-hand drive. So this is actually for the passenger in the UK, and that's for the passenger in left-hand drive markets, and not really for the driver. And for the audio, again, that is for the passenger because you've got this here on the steering wheel. So yeah, finger out for Klima, and then you just got that. And I can reach that. I'm sitting back in my seat now. As I will show you, I am sitting back in my seat and I can reach that perfectly fine. I think these interfaces, they're not perfect, but the Golf one works perfectly fine. Having it angled wrong and having the home button on the other side, it just doesn't work as well as this. And there's the home button there. So this is natural, you know, to have it on this side. Well, actually I can reach it on the Golf because it's shorter, but yeah, this is a much nicer interface. I know there's been a lot of chat about this. Well, yeah, hopefully that settles it. Let's talk about the plastic. So this is always a tricky area on Skodas. It's really nasty. I don't know if you can see that, but that is, ooh. And I feel a bit confused because then when I look at this dash, it's got Alcantara on it. The last time I saw Alcantara on a dashboard, I was in the new Aston Martin. So we've got this sort of contrast of this lovely, I mean, it looks so expensive, soft touch there as well. Even this looks okay. And yet you've got this nasty stuff here. And I think that comes down to the fact that this is a cheap car, especially in the lower models. So they're not going to change the plastics down here just because you've got a VRS that's going to touch probably close to 40k if you spec it up a bit higher than this one. That is what it is, right from the top to the bottom. But they have gilded the dash on the VRS with that. I don't know if that works for me, to be honest, because I like a car to be pretty consistent in its quality. And that's the one thing that the Golf is. Out of all the cars in this section for Volkswagen Group, A3, Leon, Octavia and Golf, the Golf is the one that seems to be the most consistent with its material quality. There's no sort of smoke and mirrors to try and make something look better And it is. Yeah, I suppose we better have a look in the boot, because that's what this is all about. But before we do that, let's have a look at rear passenger space. So, all right, in the back, hopefully you can see it's still got the quilting. Sometimes on Audis they don't quilt the back seats or diamond stitch them. We've got plain black seat belts, by the way, all round, and yeah, racy looking seats those. Plain black floor mats again, little coat hook there. I should mention, don't worry people, you've still got the parking ticket holder in the windscreen there, okay? We've got touch sensitive rear interior lights, frameless mirror, black headlining for that sporty look here, and yeah, this is a comfortable place to be. Even though the roof comes down a lot, it doesn't seem to affect the headroom in the back here. Yeah, this is all right, and I can actually see through that, which is pretty useful if someone's driving. But yeah, well, you can do that to the driver, tickle the back of their neck. So yeah, it also comes with lane assist, which might be useful. What it also does come with, I shouldn't forget this, keyless entry and start is standard. If you don't like that, we have a solution. Oh, look at the ambient lighting as well. How cool is that? Does it come to the back? I'm not convinced it does. I'd say that's a no, but it looks really good on the dash there. Yeah, I really feel the need, I've got to tell you this because it's just so important. So let's turn it on. Let's go into a vehicle, and then Vivant, central locking, and Kezi. So Kezi's keyless entry something, and you can just turn it on and off. So you can still use a keyless start, but people can't get into your car by amplifying the signal of your key when it sits on your hall table. That's a really good feature, and the good thing about that is thieves will not know if the car's set up with it or not. Right, let's now do what we need to do with an Octavia and have a look at its huge boot when I remember where the stop button is, which is just down here. I'm really impressed this is standard on this car. Power tailgate. Again, it's one of those things that winds you up for the first few days, but when you get used to them, yeah, they're really cool. Right, that is a big boot. So, checking my notes, we have 600 litres of space now, which is increased to 1,555 with the seats down, and you've got these little levers to release them like that, like a catapult. Yeah. Underneath here, there's probably more space. Yeah, we've got the optional spare wheel, and the jacks. That's quite nice to have. But yeah, this is a big boot. I once sold an Octavia to a lady called Tanya, and she was a painter and decorator, and she brought her ladders round with her to make sure that when she went from a Mark I Octavia to a Mark II, they still fitted. And I'm pleased to say they did. And Tanya, if you want this Octavia, I'm pretty sure they will as well, because that's a humongous boot. So 600 litres versus 381 for the Golf. Let's have a look at the Golf. And then the headrest hit the back seat, so yeah, not very convincing. Okay, that's that done then. I think now we need to have a look under the bonnet. Which side do you reckon the release is on? Well, they can't put the home button on the right side, so let's try the passenger side. Yes, there it is. And on the Golf, we have the home button on the right side, and we have the bonnet release there as well. Now, I know this is embarrassing, but we have, for the first time, I think, a telescopic strut on the VRS, which is a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest. So yeah, we've got the squidgy engine cover, but underneath the bonnet there we have the same hardware as on the Golf, but unfortunately I can't leave the bonnet now because it'll land on my head because we haven't got the telescopic strut. Well, let's see if the GTI could make up for that little embarrassment when we go and drive these cars on some wonderful country roads. Okay, here we are inside the Octavia vRS, just getting ready for a drive in typical Volkswagen Group style. Everything is very adjustable, so we've got reach and rake of the steering wheel. There's loads of adjustment there. We've got manual adjustment of the seats, but that's fine by me, so just crank it up and down. There's also a lever on the side there for lumbar, which is really cool because actually with this kind of lever you know exactly how much you've got out, while with the old style like buttons and stuff you never knew whether it was in or out. So it's simple, but it seems to be better. We've still got a locker under the headlight switch, which we've lost on Golf 8. Always really handy for carrying a microfiber so you can clean the fingerprints. We've even got, and I'm surprised the Golf has lost this if they can do it in this car, the sunglasses holder. I'm pretty sure the funny shaped thing in the Golf Centre console is for sunglasses, but yeah. Anyway, whatever. We've got more important things to worry about than the sunglasses holder. So we've got keyless. Press this button on the side here, which is it's so funny because it feels like you're putting your finger in the ignition barrel, and it doesn't sound sporty one bit. Should we try a different mode? Let's put it into sport. It doesn't sound that great. We'll see if it gets better when we go driving, so let's do that. We've got front and rear parking sensors. There's no camera as standard. It is a long car, but on the plus side, it's not actually significantly wider than the Golf. So on a good road, it should feel no different. The Golf's already a big car. And then just nick it into drive. It's so easy, these shifters. I know a lot of people complain about them, but they work really well. The only difference is you cannot put them into manual mode fully like you did on the old mechanical shifter, because it had a mechanical connection to the gearbox. Still, on these you just use the paddles and they stay in manual mode for a lot longer than they used to. And then you can flip back to auto by just holding down the right hand paddle, and it just takes it out of the manual mode. So that's pretty cool. Right, let's go and find a good road now and see how this car drives. Okay, well, we're now on a pretty good British B road. I'm going to put the car into sport mode because in normal mode it just feels a bit too comfortable. Rather annoyingly, on this Octavia, to select your mode you have to press the mode button and then use the touchscreen, which is what the Golf 7 did for about the first couple of years of production. Then they realised that was really annoying and they allowed you to cycle through the modes by just repeatedly pressing the mode button. But maybe because the switches are so cheap, they want you just to use the touchscreen, which is less likely to break. Anyway, we've got it into sport mode, and this does feel like the default mode if you want to enjoy driving this car on a road like this, because normal feels more like a comfort mode, and there's still a comfort mode as well. This is a very, very compliant car. I mean, in comfort mode now, it's ever so comfy, wallowy even. Let's put it back into sport then. Unfortunately, there's no extra noise, nothing, no pops, no crackles. You get a bit of EA 888 growl coming from under the bonnet, but there is literally nothing else. I never thought I'd say, give me some fake noise, but I think this car needs it, and it's really weird that it's just bereft of any sort of character like that. Brakes are good though. It weighs, even though it's quite big, it's still lighter than a Golf R by about 30 kilograms. It's still about 60 or 50 kilograms more than the GTI. So the brakes may well work okay on the road. Like now, they are actually really good. We'll feel some brakes as well, but I reckon if you load it up with people, kids, luggage, drive through the mountains like I'm sure people will do, they might struggle a bit coming down the mountains, but on roads like this, driving, you know, relatively spiritedly on your own, I'm sure they are pretty good. Now we've got some really good corners coming up. I know this road pretty well. I've driven my Clubsport on this road in the week that I've had it, and it's been laugh out loud amazing to drive. I'm not getting that feeling with this car. It actually reminds me of my Seat Leon FR Estates. That was all right going around corners, but it wasn't incredible, and it was quite stiff. This car's multi-link, thank God, but the multi-link seems to have been used to make the car comfortable, not to make it dynamically amazing like the Mark 8 GTI is. So it's a much comfier car than the GTI. I'd love to try it on passive dampers, see if it still is, because you get these 19-inch wheels either way, and that might be a bit marginal, but it's not bad. And we've got the VAQ diff now, which I think we'll feel the benefits of on this corner. Yeah, and you can feel the back helping you around a bit there. But yeah, all I can think is that this car feels like an R-Line or an FR, but with a bit more power, a bit more torque to help you when it's fully loaded. And the fact they haven't engineered any noise into it, the fact it's pretty squidgy when you're in normal mode, it feels like the bushes and all the other bits are quite soft as well. It's not just the dampers that can make a car feel sporty, there are so many other bits as well, and steering feel is a bit lacking as well. It's not bad, but the GTI has upped its game, and I think we need to go and drive one and just remind ourselves how good that car now is. Okay, here we are inside my Golf GTI Clubsport. Probably a good time to remind you this isn't a natural rival, but this car's still being run in. It's done 425 miles, and I'm not going to be able to get any more performance out of it than I would a 245 PS GTI. Anyway, chassis wise as well, I think they're pretty similar. They've both got uprated springs over the previous model. They both got, I think, a bit more negative camber. They both feel very different to the 7.5. When you drive them on a good road, they feel a lot more hardcore. Compared to the Octavia, it's probably really hard for you to appreciate down a camera, but this feels a bit more premium. We've got a start button in a more traditional position that does glow sometimes when it feels like it. We've got the same tiny little shifter, but without the knurled plastic. We've got actually nicer piano black on the buttons for the parking brake, which does look a bit more premium. The silver flashes on the electric window switches. It's subtle, but it feels better quality. And we haven't got Alcantara on the dashboard, but I don't think we really need it, because that's trying to dress up a plain, cheap cabin. And this is inherently a better quality cabin that doesn't need dressing up. Okay, let's start the old girl up then, or the young girl up. It's glowing now, so let's press it again. It's telling me we need some fuel, which we do. And it's a lot more resonant in here, a lot more like you'd expect from a hot hatch. It's only, I guess it's on cold start. We are in comfort mode, and I think because I've got 20 miles fuel range, I was driving a bit sedately. Put it into sport mode, it's a little bit bassier, but it's definitely already telling you this is a hot hatch. Yeah, it probably would be annoying my neighbours right now. So on that note, let's get going. It's got front and rear parking sensors like the Octavia. It doesn't have a rear camera as standard. It's got passive dampers as standard, which probably will make a big difference to the way the car rides and handles, considering how smooth and comfortable and sort of unexciting that was in the corners. Let's go and find out and see how it does manage a good British B road. Okay, well, here we are in my Golf GTI Clubsport, and for cars that are made up of the same ingredients, I can't believe how different it feels to the Octavia. For a start, the ride is a lot more turbulent. We're on passive dampers, but we're on 18-inch wheels. Having said that, we've got the same 40 section tyre, so they're pretty well matched in the wheel department. Unusually, because generally you're running 19s with smaller, with lower profile tyres. And I can only describe this car as feeling like how Golf GTIs used to be if you modified them. So say you took a 7.5 and put some nicer dampers on it, some coilovers, something like that. That's how this car now feels from the factory. And you might have increased the negative camber as well while you've done that. Well, they've done that for you as well, because it means you just get a lot more grip and it's less prone to understeer. It's a really pointy, direct, precise car now, and it's pretty much as if they built it for me, what they've done to it, because I get to drive on roads like this habitually, and I do like to drive a car to its limits. We've got a lot more character in the exhaust. We've got fake noise, but we've also got some pops and farts, which I can't really, can't really show you them fully because we can't really go over, say, 3,000 RPM right now. But on this road, okay, it's bobbing around a bit, but it's pretty well controlled. I know when I get to this corner, I don't need to even change a gear. I'll just laughing it out loud. And yeah, it's quick. The Octavia is not slow, it's quick enough, but this is going to be ballistic when I can finally open the taps. Yeah, it's quite narrow, this road, got cars coming the other way, but I know I can place it so accurately. I've got one blade of grass on my tyre. I wish they were a bit more accurate. And then into this corner, onto the brakes, the back felt a bit lively then as I had to turn in the brakes. There's a car coming on sort of the wrong side of the road, and then oh, it just smudges its way around that corner and then just explodes out of it. Oh, I love this car. I love it. I love it. Well, whilst these two cars look pretty similar on paper, it's quite clear they're now courting a very different audience. Someone who likes the new Octavia vRS might find the MK8 Golf GTI a little bit too raw now, while somebody who likes the new up for it attitude of the GTI might find the Octavia vRS a little bit boring. It's probably no coincidence that Skoda is the only one of the 4 main Volkswagen Group brands to not have a trim level that offers the looks of their sportier model but without the performance, a bit like R line is to R, FR is to Cupra, and Audi S line is to S. And I don't think I'm being too harsh on this car by saying it feels like a halfway house between one of those models and a full-blown performance model. But looking at it like that, it actually makes a lot more sense. You can buy a Golf R-Line with the 2-litre TDI 150 horsepower engine and DSG for just under £30,000. For just over £2,000 more, you can have an Octavia vRS with not 150 horsepower, a 200 horsepower diesel and DSG, a lot more standard kit and a lot more space. The Octavia vRS is a very worthy car, but I just can't help thinking how good it could have been if some of that £2,700 saving over the Golf GTI was spent on addressing its main weaknesses, which are primarily the interior switch and plastic quality, the infotainment screen, which is angled badly and isn't really set up for us in right-hand drive markets, and the exhaust, which could do with a little bit of character considering it's a sporty car, and also it needs the chassis to have a bit of life injected into it. With all those attended to, I don't think it actually needs to be that much cheaper than the Golf GTI. And the beauty of that is that it leaves a bit of room between the VRS and the SEL model for something that offers the looks of the VRS but without the performance to slot in there. You could even call it the RS line, and I think much like the umbrella that you get slotted into the door card, that would also be simply clever.